Did you know this when it comes to Zebec? So as part of their 2026 roadmap, one of their main objectives is allegedly Zebec programs expansion through partnerships. Now, nothing I say is financial advice, but here's the thing. We have to consider Zebec already has partners like Algorand. And I would hypothetically deduce, right? I would kind of conclude that from that statement right there, I'm assuming they're looking to add more partnerships, which I think is actually very impressive considering how Zebec, first of all, isn't necessarily the biggest project out there, and how a lot of people out there are not really complaining about this anyways. Like, do I hear a lot of people saying, oh, Zebec doesn't have enough partnerships? No, I don't. But Zebec, they kind of, I feel like, are still working towards more partnerships in 2026. So I find that actually pretty impressive in my mind. However, people like to allude to how ZBCN clearly is having a pullback, right? But in my opinion, if I take a look at Zebec doing the things that it's doing, and there's a pullback, you know what? If I'm looking to dollar cost average anyways, hypothetically, maybe the lower something is, the happier I'd be temporarily. Now, I don't want it to be that way forever, but if I'm able to dollar cost average at a lower point, I'm not going to be complaining about that at all. The thing is this. Zebec, keep in mind, in 2026, they're still looking to do things. A lot of other projects out there, they're looking to slow down. This hypothetically seems to be wanting to speed up, which may sound kind of ridiculous in a good way, but I do find it pretty impressive. And also, a lot of people out there like to tell me that they're a little bit concerned when it comes to Zebec in terms of can they make it through a market downturn. Now, I don't know their internals or something like that. However, this is what I can kind of deduce a little bit. And let me explain what I mean by this. So if I take a look at Zebec, they naturally, just because they don't have such a large team, like for instance, they have over 25 members. However, it's not like over 100 or something like that, which I see a lot of other projects do have. In which case, we have to consider Zebec naturally, because there's just not that many members, if there's market downturns, in terms of, let's say, the spend when it comes to the employees, in terms of the wages and stuff like that, it may not necessarily be as kind of concerning because it just doesn't have such a large team, which I think is actually a good thing because a lot of other projects out there, if they have over 100 employees, let's say, and there's a market downturn, what's going to happen if things are not doing what they originally have done? Because a lot of other projects out there, they have a certain amount of revenue, right? And they feel like, okay, if it kind of stays this way, we can still maintain this certain amount of employees, let's say in terms of the amount. But what happens if the revenue starts going down, but then the monthly cost stays the same as before? Then that's a little bit not good. That's no longer paradise right there. That's time to kind of, maybe start thinking about, what are we going to do, right? That's sometimes the vibe right there. But Zebec, do they need to really worry about that if the team isn't that massive anyways? I probably don't think so. So my thing is this. Yeah, sure, they have a presence in New York, San Francisco, and as well as London, but if the team is kind of relatively lean anyways in terms of the amount, I feel like I'm not necessarily concerned whether or not it could make it through a market downturn because just naturally because of that, the overhead may not be as much. Other projects out there, if we're talking about a really large team, wow, if let's say there's a market downturn, good luck because that monthly expense is going to be intense. Yet the revenue just sometimes isn't there. So this is why when I take a look at Zebec, I do like how they're running relatively a lean operation. It feels more so kind of a startup type of vibe. It just feels like it has this sort of cohesive but lean structure. That's kind of my mindset. It doesn't really operate like a Papa John's where there are so many branches. It kind of feels like that sort of pizza restaurant with maybe one or two branches. But this is just my mindset. However, even besides all that though, I just haven't given up when it comes to Zebec. I'm still dollar cost averaging once a month. It's a little bit boring, but that's what I do. And I'm still thinking about 10 cents, even though it's around 48 times away. But you know what? Again, I'm looking to dollar cost average anyways. However, at 10 cents at a market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply of around 9.8 billion, I don't think it's anything that ridiculous either, maybe, because, it's not like it's such a groundbreaking figure by any means. I've seen projects with a lot less, hypothetically, maybe do a lot more, but we'll wait and see. This is just my mindset. I've seen memes far exceed that, like Dogecoin far exceeded that. It actually, back in 2021, had a market cap of around 80 billion at one point. Again, around 80 billion. But yeah, besides that point, though, I'm going to still stay patient, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'll never be able to know when hypothetically there could, maybe even if, there's an altcoin season. Again, I can't control that, and I don't know when that will exactly happen. There's just no way I can know that. However, what I can do is stay patient, and that's clearly what I'm going to do, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I'm still holding, and I'm still waiting.